So today we are welcoming Larry Zuveris, who is a friend and a self-publisher of self-help books. He is a retired community college bookstore manager who was also an adjunct professor teaching life skills, something we're desperately missing today. Today he is sharing his special interest that he has had in the prison ministry. So Larry, how did you get into doing ministry in a state prison setting?
Well, it's kind of a long story, I suppose. I got married about age 25 and kind of drifted away from the church. And 25 years later, I happened to be 50-ish. And so a friend at church sponsored me to go on an Emmaus walk. And it's like a 3-day weekend where you're just with other guys, and other guys are giving talks about their background and things that have happened to them. And it's kind of a spiritual perspective, and it's get you thinking about where you're at and what you're doing. And to me, I think it was life changing because I really got involved with the church. I was on teams with Emmaus and um, did some other things in the church. And I was just involved and active. Well, a friend at church, I'll call him a friend because he's always seemed to be getting me into things. And he
Friends
talked me
do.
into checking out, friends do that, right? Into an Emmaus walk, not an Emmaus walk in prison, and they call it Kairos. And it's very similar. I mean, it's only men doing this. And it has another name beside Kairos, is called Cookie Ministry because you get the team members that go into the prison, get their friends at church and at work to bake homemade cookies. Uh, and not a few dozen, but dozens of dozens of cookies. And the interesting thing is that these cookies are not only for the prisoners that are going through the weekend, they're for all the prisoners and all the employees, the guards, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a cookie weekend. And the food is really good because they cook the food outside and bring it in for the team and these prisoners. We don't have to eat the prison food, which is usually not very good. And the food that's cooked outside is really excellent, plus the cookies. So it's a really great weekend, but it is a spiritual awakening weekend kind of thing. It's just amazing. And a neat thing about it is it's not like you go in and you never see those guys again. No, it's ongoing. Like once a week, there's something called prayer and share, and then once a month, there's a little more extensive prayer and share where you go back, you get to see the same, they get to see you, you get to see them, and it's just connection. I mean, they're human beings too. They just did something wrong, got in trouble, and we're hopefully helping in a spiritual perspective them have a second chance at life. Now, I was at one prison where it was a long-term prison, so some of those guys weren't going to get out for a long, long time, if ever. But then I was also at another prison doing Kairos, and this was more of an open kind of setting where most of these guys are going to be getting out into the community. So the impact you could potentially have with them was going to happen more quickly as they got back into the community. So, but again, it would have to follow up where you went in periodically, see them. And I'm not a huggy kind of person. I'm kind of shy. But in that setting, there was something just natural about hugging the other. They hug you, you hug them. It just like, I don't know, it just worked. Kind of weird, I know, but
Yeah,
it was,
these days we never get close enough to each other to hug. Everybody's on the computer, so
yeah, it was not digital at all. I mean, there was some recording videos and stuff, but live music and the live food that was brought in and kind of thing. So it's unique. I would have never thought I would have got into doing something like that. Uh, but things fell into place, and like I said, my friend, he was there along with it. He was into Kairos before I was, so I had him, you know, sort of help me understand what was going on and that kind of stuff. And there's training. They don't just say, "Oh, you're in, let's go." No, you have to have training outside before you can go inside. and you have to get approval by the state to let you come in, identification, some training by them, et cetera, et cetera. But it really is worth it. The only thing is I got older, it's like an hour to the prison. And sometimes it's like in weekends and nights, and I've gotten older. That hasn't like worked with my schedule very well. But when I was involved with it, it was like fantastic ministry where you got the feedback from the guys and that it was making a difference for them. And especially they would come back. They didn't have to, even though you go in, uh, them coming was optional. They didn't have to come back. And some of them could have just come to listen, get all the great food and the cookies, and then never come back. But really, a lot of them did. And that was a neat thing, the communication
That had to
aspect
be
of it.
pretty rewarding. That's awesome, really.
Yeah, it was really rewarding. It was. It was kind of like helping to make a difference in somebody's life. And they were in tough situations. And once in a while, they didn't have to, but sometimes they would talk about, what had happened to them and that. And some like those that really wanted to share, you go like, wow, if I would have been in that situation or situations, I could have done the same thing or worse or whatever. I mean, I could have been in prison because you know how you do stuff and you go like, oh, well, I really shouldn't have done that, kind of thing. Not that it was maybe illegal, but you just go like, I feel guilty. I shouldn't have done that. It's kind of like, well, you do certain things and the guilt is assigned by the society, right? Through the
Yeah.
court system. And so I go like, yeah, I mean, and I've heard that from other people that were involved with the Kairos program. That could be me that's in prison. And so you start relating to, hey, I'm not any better than anybody else, but I can help them, kind of help myself at the same time. Like you said, it's rewarding kind of thing. So, I mean, if you ever hear of Kairos prison ministry and somebody says, "Hey, could you bake some cookies for it, or would you like to get involved or hear more about it?" Hey, I would suggest check it out.
Yeah, I can see where that would really, like I said, this day and age, we don't have that personal connection anyway. And those prisoners, and I might not necessarily be overly sympathetic, but yeah, some of them, like you said, you can tell some people they just took a step the wrong direction that maybe anybody could have taken, and uh, and then they get stuck in that prison, and the only people they're with, if they see, and how often they get to see other people. So it probably did make a big difference to come in and see him.
Yeah,
Um,
it's the human condition, right? That
yeah.
we're all human. All human beings are human, and we make mistakes and do things wrong, and But on the other hand, uh, I think it's also sort of natural for a lot of people is to care about other people. Sometimes you think we're so separated in society, and there's us and them, and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But when you
Yeah.
get to talk to a real person, a human being, and go like, even if you're not exactly on the same side, you go to find out, well, they're just like a real person and they kind of look at things different, but maybe you can go like, maybe I can relate to them and maybe they can relate to me. And if you are open to it.
That's awesome. So how old you got into that when you were like in your 50s?
Yeah, yeah, I was early 50s when I got involved with the church and it led to several different opportunities, which I haven't talked about. But I wanted to talk about specifically Kairos prison ministry because a lot of people would go like they've heard of prison that there's such a thing as prison ministry. You go like, but people would go like, well, I would never do that. I mean, like those actually, my wife would say they should throw them in there and take the key away and never let them out again. I mean, real, and a lot of people are that way, like real strong. That's the end, get them out of here. And we don't want to hear from them anymore. But as taxpayers, we're all paying for that. And it's not cheap. All the
Well,
prison,
it's
maintaining the prison, the facility, the employees, the food, on and on. it's not inexpensive. So it's a significant budget for any state and counties. I mean, there's county prison or jails also. And I even got involved with some county in our particular area. We have I think it's 5 counties went together and did a regional jail system. And I've done some ministry there, not cookie ministry. It was like a different kind of ministry, but I have enjoyed doing that too. It was more of a teaching ministry kind of thing. But again, these are people that are from the community. Like when you go to a state prison, they may come from whoever knows where in the whole state of that I live in. But when you're in a regional jail, these people are pretty much from around, where you live, kind of
Yeah.
thing, your counties you live. And so that made it even more. And sometimes you would even know some of them, they came from your town, even or the towns that you know about, kind of thing. So that's a different ministry. Those people are in there maybe like for a few weeks or less than a year, kind of a thing. So it's definitely a turnaround kind of thing. And again, it was sort of you know, not the food, not the cooking ministry, but it was more of a how can we help you spiritually? And we had a particular approach that we used with that that seemed to be useful, short term, very short term, no follow up.
But
So very different.
yeah, like you said, especially I guess, if we assume that, like you said, however people feel that they want to judge a criminal and how long they're supposed to be in prison, and I mean all that's debatable, but if we assume that we want to let them get back out into society, they need to have some conversation with somebody on probably a spiritual level about their situation and the mistakes they made or whatever, and um, hopefully they don't make them again. And so I can see how that would be insanely important for society as a whole, let alone them feeling like human beings and not just discarded. Because yeah, if
Well,
you
actually,
make them feel like they're
the
discarded and
state
we
the
release them,
state program. I could interrupt you and say
yeah,
they call the state program Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. So, but are they doing that? I mean,
yeah,
there's programs, and some guys participate in them, and I mean, they're usually optional. Uh, and some prisons have better programs than other prisons. So they're not all alike. And so the options of what you can and can't do, kind of thing, and the rules and regulations. But it says, hey, we want to rehabilitate you because most of them are not going in
that's
there for life. Some people do get
yeah,
sentenced to life, but the chance of parole is usually there, or for maybe it's 10 years, it's 20 years or something, but it's not like for life kind of thing, with the point being, we do want to do something with you so that you can go out and be a better citizen. The question is, how well does that actually work?
yeah. Well, I take it you must have developed quite a bit of communication skills in order to talk to all the different kinds of prisoners. Um,
Right.
that that must. How long did you do that for?
Wow. I'm 10 years maybe or something.
Wow. Okay.
Quite a while.
Yeah. Well, sometime you'll have to tell me some specific stories about some people you met. But how did this lead you into the books you've been writing?
Well, because I was a bookstore manager for like 21 years in a rural setting, 6 county community college. So it's not a huge metropolitan kind of community college, but still significant serving rural areas. Um, but and I would have gone to something like that if it existed when I got out of high school, but I didn't. I had to go into the city, so to speak, to get to the kind of training I wanted in business. Well, anyhow, I did a number of things over time until I got to this particular junction in my life and started working at a community college and a bookstore. And so books, right? 21 years selling books. First, they were textbooks, but then the interesting thing about the bookstore was it's not just a bookstore. They call it the bookstore, but we sold candy, we sold pop, chips, we sold, sweatshirts for the college, kind of thing. Uh, Supplies, computers. I mean, it was like a mini store, kind of thing. And we went through, actually, when I was there, we had a hole in the wall, really. But the college grew and the college grew, and then the bookstore got remodeled to larger, and the college grew, and they remodeled it another time, and it was like just some really great experiences. I'm a workaholic, so a bookstore, it never ends because it's a cycle, right? It's quarters or semesters. Like you barely get one going, and it's time to get ready for the next one, and it just keeps, happening year round, kind of a thing. But I mean, I liked it, and it was a service. I mean, I was a bookstore manager, it's retail, right? But I'm in a service environment, right? I'm serving the needs of this college students who needed books and the needs of the professors who needed the books to teach, you know. So that was pretty cool. And oddly enough, my wife worked in a library, a public library, for
Yeah.
quite a few years
So you're
also.
both bookworms.
Except she actually reads books. I sell books. I don't read, kind of thing. But it was a great experience. Well, somewhere along the line, somebody said, "Hey, could you teach a course? We needed somebody to fill in or something." And I go like, well, let me check with my supervisor. Yeah, yeah, we could work it out." And so I did one, and so that I was filling in, right? And then somebody else said, "Well, oh, I need somebody to do this. Since you did that, could you do this maybe too?" And sort of just like was in this area and this area, and then I kind of settled into an area which was, I call it life skills for college students, and it wasn't just how for them to be better students, it was for them to be better people, human beings. I mean, that's an element of it, right? You want them to be better at taking tests, and you want them to be better at, doing the things that college students need to do to be successful. As a matter of fact, it was called a success course. But from my perspective is you're not going to be here forever. You're going to be out there in the community, and you need to realize the reality of outside also. So life skills was, part of that, right? And so that became an area that I really liked uh, working with. And so don't remember exactly how this all worked out. I tried doing a number of things uh, after I retired, and eventually I wanted to be a coach kind of a thing. And I wanted to do courses because I was teaching a course. I didn't put the course together, but I was teaching a course. And so like, maybe I could do some kind of a course that would be sort of life skill oriented or something for people or business people. Maybe business people, like I ran a business in a setting, in a college setting, but still as a business. And maybe people struggle with business, and maybe I could help them with that. Maybe workaholism, because I am one, kind of thing. But that kind of didn't happen that way. And so I tried this, that, and that. And then this thing about writing a book kind of come along somehow. I don't remember exactly. And I go like, oh, that would be a way uh, to help people without having to, do one-on-one coaching or do public speaking in front of a group kind of thing. And there could be a lot of ways you could do that, or doing a course that you videotaped or something. But I go like, I always liked writing. Matter of fact, I was a news writer at several points in my life. This was like part-time evenings, like taking notes at a council meeting, school board meeting, that kind of thing. And so I would write about that. And once in a while, it was kind of cool. The thing about it is like, if you had a really interesting story, it would get on the front page of the paper. And that was like with your byline, and they don't know who you are, but it says, "Hey, I wrote that story." And it got the front page, not because what I did, but I put it together from what happened at some meeting I was covering. And so the writing aspect was there. And so
So,
I kind of got into writing that way. And so it sort of seems like writing is kind of like something I kind of have been doing, writing reports for business, right? You have to do reports and
yeah.
stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like,
So
go
you
ahead.
kind of put your writing skills together with your communication skills with to help people that might be missing a couple little points on their communication skills.
Yeah. And so the first book I did was how to talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So I think communication skills, unless you're a hermit, you are going to have to communicate with your supervisor, other employees, customers, people at church, people at an organization, you know, people when you check out at Walmart, right? Wherever you go to this business or you get the doctor, you got to communicate with the doctor, like what's going on with you, right? So it's a skill, you know. It's kind of like we're not born with it. We're born to cry that we need something, right? But
Yeah.
we have to learn how to communicate acceptably because when your kids are just like, I want it, I want it, I want it. Well, that only lasts for so long, and then you got to learn how to work with communicating with your parents, right? You have to figure out how do you communicate with parents to get what you want because we all have human wants, right? And so as we get older, you know, our communications grow outwardly. And nowadays, of course, it's digitally uh, very important to do that. So in my book, it's not just how to communicate one-on-one, which is very important, or in a small group, or you know, or you go to a party or you know to an organization. There's just all kinds of things that can happen where you need to communicate. But also get into emails and you know
Yeah.
texting and stuff like that. Or it's another part of the book because that's reality too. Communication is happening all the time, and it's nowadays with all the stuff that's going on, it is a challenge.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, I mean, that's probably the biggest growing challenge right now is proper communication. So that's a well-needed book, actually. And you've got another book coming up?
Well, yeah, I'm actually thinking of. I've been thinking about another book. By the way, my book is available on Amazon. Just if you just type in "how to talk," it will probably come up with my name, and you can see that my name is Larry Zuvers. Or you can just search on my name, and it'll come up that way too. Which is available not only in paperback, hardback, ebook kind of thing, right? And there's audiobook also. So multiple ways to do that. Anyhow, I've been thinking about another book, and it's I think this is a human condition also that you need to deal with, and it's how to deal with daily hassles. Have you ever been had a hassle, a day that's got hassles? I think just about uh, almost every day has got something that could be category go into that category of hassles. I think life is a freaking hassle a lot of the time. And the thing is, we all have them to different degrees, right? Some days there's bigger hassles and some days there's littler hassles, but it just kind of seems like the human condition is that there's hassles. And there's, I'll call them that. You can call them whatever you want. There's probably a lot of different things you could call them. But how do you deal with it? Because it can be frustrating. It can be a guilt trip. You know, you can be scared of doing things sometimes, or other times you're scared into doing things because the peer pressure, pressure from the neighbors, coworkers. There's a lot of things that we're being
Yeah.
influenced to do, and we go like, I don't really like doing that, or I don't want to do it. But on the other hand, it's just a hassle that you kind of have to put up with living in a society. And maybe there's some ways to deal with that. So I'm thinking a how-to book on how to deal with some of the hassles you come up with maybe seasonally, like mowing the lawn because the neighbor mowed their lawns and now you have to mow your lawn. Not because the neighbor's coming over and telling you, but you know, oh, or your wife may be saying, you know, all the neighbors mowed and you
Yeah.
haven't mowed. It's kind of like peer pressure, right? And it just happens, you know. And if you don't mow your lawn, sooner or later, if you live in town, the city or the village will come along and go like, you need to do that. We have this law or whatever they call it. They're like, it gets too high. If you don't do it, we'll mow it and we'll charge you for it. You better go mow it. So
Yeah.
there's consequences to your choices that you make on how you deal with re responsibilities and hassles that happen in daily life. And that's the next book. that I'm already starting to gel.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that one because I liked your first one. So, like I said,
Thank you.
I think that it is necessary too. Like I said, communication is obviously a huge problem right now. So, fantastic. Thanks for your time. And yeah, everybody should try to get your book. I'm going to put up a link in the description so they can get to your book.
Oh, yeah. Great, Brandy. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a pleasure being on your podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Larry. I'll be talking to you soon.